Hi, I'm Cody Alexander with MatchQuarters.com. Welcome to the Art of X show. Today we are talking about a modern coverage that is a key cog in almost every system that you will see, especially at the upper levels, and is becoming a more popular way of defending some of these spread formations, especially ones that use two-back, especially ones that use RPOs. So what is it? We're talking about brackets. So I'm going to break down bracket for you today. Essentially the split field coverage part of it, and then how it translates into middle of the field close. Now, what we're seeing really across all levels of football is a hybridization of scheme. We're seeing 3-4 teams run 4 down. We're seeing 4 down teams run 3-4 type schematics. So we're getting the meshing of the front. Now we're truly seeing the meshing of the back end. You know, it used to be you either were in the quarters camp or you're in the middle of the field close camp, and you kind of, you know, it's like oil and water. Now what we're starting to see is teams starting to use, hey, I kind of like what that middle of the field close is doing. I'm going to bring that into my quarter system where, hey, we need to start running a little bit more quarters. I'm going to start moving that in. And one of the great ways to kind of mesh the two of them and make it easy for everybody to understand is brackets. So that's what we're going to do today. And then obviously we're going to follow it up with film examples to kind of tie everything together. So let's get into it. Let's learn about bracket.
In bracket, you essentially are moving the nickel outside of the slot receiver. So it's a quarters variation. In regular quarters, you can either run made quarters and have the corner locked on number one no matter what, and then you're playing kind of an inside bracket with the Sam, and then the free safety will be a little bit closer to the slot receiver. And so essentially in quarters, what I call sky, that would be the alignment that you would get. You would get the Sam linebacker right here. You would get the free safety right here. And according to where the back is, so if the back is to him, he's going to cover down this way. If the back were to be on the other side, he's now in the fit, and so he now can trigger on any kind of run action with eyes to three, because if he were to push, then we're going to take it. So the way that I teach bracket, we're building a foundation to where if we wanted to run single high out of this, we can. The way that I tell this guy is, look, you have all of 2 up and you have all of 2 out. Okay, we are not coming up on any smash concept. So all that smash concept means is that if I were to get a hitch here and he were to run a corner, that we would give an out call and that he would work to here and the corner would take the corner. That would be a typical quarters variation. What we're doing is changing the leverage. So we're taking a Sam, we're moving him outside of number 2. So we are inhibiting you from throwing outside. That's essentially what we're trying to do. And now we're essentially saying, hey, look, our field corner is going to lock up number 1 and he's gone. You cannot go outside. So what you're going to end up getting with the answer is, remember, offenses are about attacking space. Where is the space? It's obvious on this where the space is. It's right here, especially with a Mike linebacker tucked inside. You don't have anybody over here. So how are you going to, as an offense, okay, they've taken this away from us. There's really 2 choices that you can run. You can run either a bender, right? You can run a deep seam and kind of run away from the nickel, trying to get this guy to stay stagnant. Or what most likely happens is you run slant routes. Well, in bracket, remember, I didn't tell the Sam linebacker that he had anything in. If 2 breaks in, the safety's going to nail down on that. So that's essentially what we've done is we have built a bracket. So these 2 guys are going to work in tandem. If he goes inside, the safety's going to have him. If he goes outside or up, the Sam or the nickel's going to have him. So how does this play out if we have a fast 3? Because this is where you can get into trouble. In a typical quarters coverage, if 3 pushes to the flat, the nickel is going to end up taking. That's the way that it's going to be. It's that 2-3 read. It's that 3 push. Hey, Mike's going to turn to the Sam and say, hey, alert push, especially out of a quad set like this. Anytime 3 is near the 2 receivers, we are going to get a push. Well, if he were to push and he were to run a slant or an under, well, he would pick it up. He would drop down and pick that up. It would be a natural switch. Well, in bracket, we're not going to do that. In bracket, we're telling him, look, As long as he goes vertical, you've got him. If he goes vertical, he goes out, you got him. If they push 3, the Mike backer is going to stay attached to number 3. And so that's kind of where I kind of eliminate that guesswork from the Sam linebacker. The only time that we will switch between the Sam and the Mike is if he rolls his hips underneath. So if we were to get some sort of a kind of like a mesh route, a shallow route. Let's say they're running shallow, but they're running it from a 2-back set. Okay. If we get something like this, now he sees him roll the hips, he's underneath. That's when he would give an undercall. He would end up picking that up. Okay. And then he would end up coming off of that. You would also have him being able to work in and would be looking for any kind of dig where what we call post control. So if he goes underneath right now, I'm working the hash and I'm looking for the post. Same thing here. We should have a double over here. He now can stay high. You can change up the variation with what you want. Now, this is still a split field coverage, and meaning that their triangle over here is not messed with. It doesn't matter what we run on the field side or the passing strength side. It doesn't affect us. So this triangle can stay here. If the back was over here and we wanted to run cloud, we could run cloud here. Then so now you would have your flat defender, wall 2 defender, which there is no vertical wall 2. That would be the back. And then you have your deep half player. So you can essentially get your triangle coverage over here. That's essentially how we teach bracket. It's a quarters variation, but the Mike linebacker has to know if I get anything pushed to the flat from the box, I've got to now work with it. Now, how does that translate to trips? Well, I've already taught bracket. So the Sam already has an idea of being outside leverage. Well, it essentially becomes the exact same thing with trips. Now the 3 is pushed, so now he's going to sit on top of that. And what we've done is we've created a triangle over here. It doesn't really change much. Now we can get the switch because he's out. And so now we're going to play almost what I call cloud coverage or 2 read over 2 and 3. So once you teach bracket, going to Stubbie or special is an easy move, especially if your nickel or your Sam understands kind of that 2 read process. Now the alignment stays the same for the Sam. He doesn't have to switch inside. So all we've done essentially is tell the nickel is, hey, look, you're not going to be inside leverage anymore, number 2. You're going to be outside leverage. And if you think about it, his rules are the exact same. If 2 goes vertical, I've got him. If 2 goes out, I've got him. The only difference here is if we do get a push by 3, he can work out. Free safety works to cap number 2, and now he becomes the wall player. We can still X out number 1 by the field corner. It still keeps our triangle coverage on the backside intact, and we can still run our split field coverage. So when you teach bracket, it's just a variation of quarters. It's just a different way of matching the receivers. This has been the easiest way that I've found to be at the high school level to teach that bracket, to where you're not worried about the fast 3, because I'm always concerned with if we get a fast 3 and then they just go ahead and shoot him vertical, he's going to slough off. Now he's at a flat foot 10, and now he's got to accelerate and go. I just think that's harder on that. It's just a harder read for those guys. So to me, what I feel more comfortable with is, look, you have him, and we will be late to the flat if we have to. Make them throw the negative route. That's kind of always been my philosophy in coverage is, look, let's let the DBs cover receivers, and let's let the backers take the back, or backers take a tight end. And if he goes flat, let the Mike start working out there. If he gets an undercall, he can always pivot and knock that down, kind of reroute that, knowing that he's got the will linebacker here, especially on a quad set like this. Now, if the back's over here, he knows now I can get split flow. So now I've got to carry that guy. I've got to X out that under as it comes across. That's essentially how we can do this. You can also, too, don't forget that if we were to get a 3 push and an under route, he's stair stepping into the middle of the field. So if this thing were to run free, or he sees this thing naked, he can always hammer down and the boundary safety can stay up. So that's something that you need to talk about when you go through this, or as you're kind of trying to ID that coverage. Look at how the free safety and the boundary safety work off together. So the last variation of this is, okay, I'm a quarters guy, right? I'm a middle of the field open guy, but that doesn't mean that we can't get to single high coverages. Okay. Now, most quarters teams, they just find it easier, instead of trying to teach all the different variations of cover three. Hey, let's just go ahead and play cover one. That's an easy way of doing it. But with bracket, you've already built the building blocks for cover three. So your middle of the field close, you've already built the building blocks for that. So if we look at special stubby, our triangles right here, we're playing 2 read over it. When we go to 3 buzz and we want to run middle of the field close, now I'm here, he's working to the middle. I've changed the triangle. The triangle is now here, and I've allowed these guys to kind of push over back to the boundary. So now you've built the building blocks already. The free safety has anything inside anyway. These guys can now these guys are switching the routes instead of the Mike and the Will. And now your Mike really becomes kind of that high hole player, run through that 3-up player, whereas now he becomes a strong hook, he becomes the weak hook, or what is the 1st to 4th defender. So if the running back was over here and he were to push, that's who he has. What you've done is, if you're one of those, and I get this question all the time, Coach, we're a quarters team, we're seeing a little bit more, maybe their district has changed it to more of a run heavy, or what they need in their ecosystem is, hey, we need more of a middle of the field close alignment. We're seeing a lot of good backs, we're seeing a lot of good run, we're seeing a lot of more spread to run. We feel like we've got the DBs to cover everybody. We want to run a little bit more middle of the field close. If you run bracket, it's a great transitional tool from quarters to cover three, or the middle of the field close. So if you go back to bracket, you're like, Coach, well, how does this, and we'll go through this at the end, but how do I teach bracket and then go straight to 3 buzz? Well, I've got the tight end over here. I've got a 3-by-1. I'm the guy that sinks down. I'm the 3-up. I'm the 1st to 4th. Now I'm the middle of the field player, and then I'm locked up on number 1. You can either lock him up or tell him to bail. And then now you've got your bracket here. You've got your 3-up. You've got your 1st to 4th. So again, if he were to be here, that's who would push with it. So you've got the building blocks for being able to go from middle of the field open to middle of the field closed by just aligning that guy outside. Doing that, you also have created a way to where you can hide your intentions. And so I'll kind of go through that as we go through the film. So here's bracket. We're going to go through some bracket film. And then what I'll do is I'll follow it up with my variation of single high, which we ran cover 1. So you can kind of see how they look almost identical. So this is just bracket. And this is what we talked about with the 3 push. Now, we're running a replacement pressure here. D end is kind of a bonus dropper. I would like him to have a little bit more situational awareness to see the back pushing, but you do see the Mike pushing. So you can tell right here, if we were to have a regular 4-man rush and the back were to push, you see the Mike going right here. You see him, you see the nickel, see eyes over here. He gives an undercall, and now he triggers down. So you can kind of see how we get that crack replaced by the nickel, and now he triggers down to make the play. So this is a good look at bracket and how that fits with that fast 3. I wanted to make sure that was the first one that I put in there. So you can see here, he's pushing with the back. He sees his hips roll under. He gives an undercall, and he comes off, makes the play. And I mentioned it in the bracket, is you're going to get these smash concepts, or these high-low concepts. So you get 2 out, okay? The corner is going to get a vertical. It's kind of, I call this like, this is kind of like an inverted smash. You're going to get an out by 2. This is what you're going to get. This is another thing that you're going to get. Once they see that it's bracket, you're going to get the rub. You're going to get these switch verticals, or you're going to get these switches by 1 and 2 to kind of rub them off right here. Nickel needs to come down. Quarterback misses the throw. The nickel needs to actually come off of this. He doesn't need to concern himself with number 1, but you can see how they get rubbed right here. Even if he would try and work out, kind of freaks out and he sees the guy and goes vertical. But that's essentially where we would be with in bracket. And then the safety with 2 out, he sees 1 in. Now he kind of becomes a free player, and then that's where you end up getting him kind of working over to that slot fade. It's kind of an inverted corner, like I said, inverted smash. On the bottom, just to illustrate, we're just running 2 read to the bottom, so you can kind of see how that works. You can see how our triangle right here stays intact. We're running true split field coverage. Mike sees the running back, just becomes a spy, kind of an extra guy in the field. Here's another look at bracket from a condensed set. So he's aligned close to the box. He's still outside leverage. He's just going to go ahead and stay on the hash. His rule is really to just be apex. So he's going to be at apex. He's about 10 yards right here. You can tell that we're megged up on number 1. We've got a wide split over here. We're going to run we have an inverted sky to the weak side anytime that we get some sort of this was a tendency for us. So anytime that we got a tight end in the C area to the weak side, we would bring him down, kind of an inverted sky. They like to run wide zone this way. And in fact, this is a waggle. So you can see the fake right here. Nickel's going to stay stationed right there. Probably is a little too he's a little too deep. He's a little too quick. Would like him to scooch out a little bit more, but you can see him keep that outside and then trigger down on that. DN does a good job of realizing that it's waggle and then just kind of working into the face. Backer doesn't do a very good job because we're running pressure. He needs to actually take him across. Backer doesn't do a very good job of stacking with the Mike on the run read, taking him through. Mike again buries himself up. So the backers aren't very good right here, but you can see the coverage. You can see the coverage with the 2 receivers. We get one of those like little pivot inverted smashes right here with kind of like a little post corner right here with a little pivot. In does a good job of staying in front of the quarterback. Here's another look at bracket on a screen. Okay. We're getting a shot from the backside, but you can see how, again, Nickel sees it. 2 goes out. He triggers. I would like the corner to be triggering too. Safety can now work high back into the post, which had this ball been thrown, you got the safety right here. Corner doesn't do a very good job. It's outside leverage. Would like him inside. And then with the run action, kind of being a little bit more patient so he can robot into it. But you get the idea with the bracket and how that would work. I run bracket. How can I make this middle of the field close? What's the easiest way that I can do that? The easiest way to do that is just run some cover 1. If you're a quarters team, I'll go through the progression at the very end of how you can transfer that into a cover 3. Maybe an indicator is the contour. If you've got a good quarterback and he can really look at the contour and say, okay, this safety's hanging a little bit lower. But right now you can't tell. And in fact, he can actually be up with the pressure coming away from him. So you can see how the bracket to the field side, it stays intact. The only thing that's different is that field safety, instead of worrying about 2 in, he's now going to go close the post. So you can kind of see that as we get through this clip. See how he's going to use his cheat steps, work to the middle of the field. Now, one thing that I would like, we are running a replacement pressure, so it's essentially 1 rat is what we're running. So he can be a little bit passive on these crossers. I would like him to be a little bit tighter on this, but he can see the quarterback going away. You've got your DN in the middle with the crosser, and then essentially we're man-to-man on the boundary right here. Okay, quarterback doesn't really have anywhere to go. Just tucks it, gets a couple yards. Bracket, you can see he starts out in the middle. You can't tell. If I were just to be here right now, I would be saying, hey, okay, what's our coverage right here? Because this guy can easily pop out. He can easily work here. We can run a creeper. We can run whatever we want. You can't really tell what coverage of contour we're going to be in. So as the ball is snapped, Okay, you can see we're running a 5-man pressure and we're running cover 1 behind it. Okay, and then the Mike's just eating the back. So you can see right here how we're just eating the back, and then we're just playing cover 1. Okay, safety does come off, not very good coverage, gets turned around, but it's not that big of a deal because we've got safety in the middle of the field right there to protect it. Needs to just come down, not play volleyball. So right there, that's a good example of pre-snap. You have no idea what we're doing. Now post-snap, quarterback's got to identify what we're doing. This is a good example too down here of how you can run a cover 1 concept, but still run it like a man match. And you can have a switch concept. Hey, these guys switch right now under 5 yards. We don't want to rub off on each other. So we're going to go ahead and play. We're going to go ahead and bracket this. We get the switch concept right here. It looks nice. Have no idea that we're in cover 1. You can't tell you can't tell if we're in base or if we're in cover 1. So right now, corner's pressing up. These guys are tight, so he's loose. And we're running man coverage. Now safety needs to do a little bit better of a job. And then again, we don't get the push by the rat. So the rat needs to push with the running back. He's got to come off of it. He needs to be a little bit better on that cheat technique, holding that inside and really getting vertical in case we do get this shot right here. But what we're doing right here is we're just running a 5-man pressure. Mike needs to take the back, but quarterback's not looking for the check down. And here's the other thing. At the high school level, if you want, you could have a DN peel. But a lot of the quarterbacks, they're not getting to that progression. They're not getting to their running back progression unless they're throwing to it. They're throwing it right now. He ends up scrambling because we are pretty good. Bad job by the safety down here coming off on a quarterback scramble. Don't want him to flip it. I've had that happen before. We harp on it all the time. But kids are kids that freak out. Would like again him to stay there, and again we get no gain, or actually it's a sack. It's about a 1 yard, 2 yard loss off of in that. And so pre-snap, quarterback's looking around. He's thinking, okay, probably getting cover 2 over here. I've got bracket over here. We're gonna run verticals here, so I'm gonna look for that. Okay, he works transitions back over here to the vertical. And then you can see, okay, safety's on top, and he just tucks in and runs. Now, how does this transition to 3-by-1? This is what it looks like 3-by-1. Okay, all you got to do is your regular rules. Okay, he's down, he's back, and so now it ends up being cover 1, and we end up. Now, I would like for him. We call it. It just depends on what the pressure is. We give it a screw it tag. So he knows that I need to screw down. I'd like for him to be a little bit higher. If these two guys, if we were getting a lot of this, we could run a banjo concept. They could give each other a switch call, and we could actually play this almost like it. We actually call that. We actually have a tag for that in our cover 1 tag, so that when they get down, they actually play it like special or Stubbie, but we're really playing cover 1. So we have a tag that we can do that. So you can see that we have another 5-man pressure. Mike's on the back. Okay, and then he sees it and he works. So great job by the safety getting the kid down for a tackle for a loss. But that's again how you can go from bracket to cover 1, which would be kind of the easiest way of doing it. Got this from the Fangio system. It's really just kind of a base rule that you can use. And if you run bracket, you've already got the basic concepts for it. And so this is kind of how we run our middle of the field close. We're going to spin down to the sniffer. So that's why it's called 3Y. We're going to spin down to the sniffer. So we give a buzz call here. So he's saying, hey, look, I'm buzzing down. So we're now switching with each other. It's bracket rules. Nothing changes. I'm still going to have that safety take the fast 3 because he's working down. I always find it easier to work down than to work back. So he's going to sink down. If he gets a fast 3, he can switch. The only way, again, is if he rolls through his hips, which he's going to snap his eyes to 2. If 2's vertical, he's going to keep pushing. If two's underneath, he'll take underneath. and then he can work the vertical. So if we end up getting something where that's fit, he's still working the vertical and then the final fourth, and then he's that cheat player into the cheat post. So if it's weak, we give a thumbs call. He works down. He's now the 3-up. He's the first, fourth. This is the cheat technique that we were talking about. He's now gone. It's the same bracket rules. It doesn't change. So these two know. The free safety's just telling the nickel and the Mike, hey, I'm cheating. I'm the one that's gone. I'm Buzz, which tells the Mike now I'm the 3-up. So it's just using word association so that the kids understand, okay, how this works. But again, if you have taught bracket, you've taught the building blocks for this. It's just now you've got to change kind of how the safeties and the Mike kind of understands what they're doing. You have all these things already in your system. So for instance, the Will already has an idea of, okay, if the safety's down, I don't necessarily have to push with anything out. So I'm now become a vertical player, which that's no different than teaching him the 3-up player. Well, if there's no 3 over here, 3's here, I just got to make sure I work through the vertical hook. So to me, that's an easy way of kind of going from bracket and moving to middle of the field, closed in cover 1, and then eventually being able to teach that 3Y coverage. Now you've taught the basics. Now you've went from quarters to middle of the field, closed in cover 3, and you really have only taught bracket, and it's been the building block for what you want. So again, the whole point of this is to kind of talk about, hey, how can I go from quarters to cover 3? And then also vice versa. How can I go from cover 3 and teach my kids quarters? Bracket is that kind of that connection. It's that in between, that if I can teach this, then now it expands the playbook, and now I can go from one thing to the other, and I can get what I need. Because it would be nice to not always have to play cover 1 when you go single high. Now it's like, hey, we want to run some of these replacement pressures, or we want an extra guy down by the box. This is a great way of introducing that by teaching bracket and then using that in your toolbox.
Thanks for joining me today on the Art of X show. Make sure to follow me on Substack, MatchQuarters.substack.com. Make sure if you need anything from templates to, hey, coach, do you have an article on this? Check out the archive on MatchQuarters.com. Follow me on Twitter at @the_coach_A. Follow the hashtag Art of X. Follow the YouTube channel.